Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins are facing a critical fork in the road this offseason, and at the center of it all is tight end Jonnu Smith, after a breakout, record-setting season that shattered every franchise mark for a Dolphins tight end. Smith wants what every top performer wants, to be paid like it, and honestly, who can blame him? The guy lit up the stat sheet, carved out a vital role in Mike McDaniel's offense, and became one of Tua Tagovailoa's most reliable weapons. But as is often the case in the NFL, production doesn't always guarantee compensation, at least not right away. Right now, Smith finds himself in a tug-of-war with a team that clearly values him, but may not be fully committed to investing long-term. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, went on local TV to say that while things are unresolved, he believes a deal can get done before training camp. That's optimistic, but is it realistic? The Dolphins seem to genuinely want Smith back. Publicly, they've made it known Tua was unequivocal in his support, saying the team should 100% re-sign him. Coach McDaniel echoed those sentiments, saying he couldn't imagine this offense without Smith in it. That's high praise from two of the most important figures in the organization. But we all know this is a business, and no amount of goodwill can override salary cap calculations or long-term roster strategy. Smith currently ranks just 32nd among tight ends in average salary. That's a shocking stat when you consider he was arguably a top 10 performer last year. And yes, while the Dolphins have the cap room to bump him up to around $8.4 million a year without blinking, that still doesn't give Smith the long-term security a 29-year-old coming off a career year is understandably seeking. What complicates this situation even more is how it aligns or doesn't with Miami's long-term plans. Jonnu Smith is 29 now and will turn 30 in August. Tight ends can have longevity, sure, but they're also in a brutal position that demands constant blocking and contact. It's fair to assume that Miami, which has been methodical with its contracts in recent years, might not view Smith as a pillar for the next 3 to 5 years. That's not a slight against him, it's just how teams approach aging players, even after breakout years. That likely explains why there's a gap between what Smith is asking and what the Dolphins are offering. One side wants value for today, the other wants security for tomorrow. Meeting in the middle won't be easy for his part. Jonnu isn't hiding his cards. Through Rosenhaus, he's made it clear Miami is his preferred destination. It's his home in the offseason, the city where he played his college ball at FIU, and the place where he finally unlocked his full potential as a tight end. This isn't just another stop in his career, it's the dream team. Rosenhaus emphasized that point again recently, reminding everyone that Smith definitely wants to stay in Miami. When a player performs, wants to stay, and is beloved in the locker room, it usually results in a contract extension. But again, this is the NFL, and things are rarely that simple. The numbers matter, the years matter, and as much as sentiment plays a role, it's not what drives negotiations. The situation is at a bit of a crossroads, and the clock is ticking. Training camp is approaching, and while Rosenhaus said he expects something to get done by then, the team hasn't publicly confirmed that timeline. From a strategic standpoint, both sides benefit from resolution before camp. Smith avoids distractions, the team gets a key player back, and they all get to focus on football. If the Dolphins believe they're legitimate contenders in 2025, and all signs point to that, they'll need weapons, continuity, and chemistry. Smith brings all three. But if Miami can't, or won't budge on the contract length or guarantees, then the trade rumors start to feel a lot more real. And speaking of trades, there's already a team circling the waters, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh is reportedly back in the mix after their own tight end, Donald Parham Jr., suffered a season-ending injury. It's a familiar script. Arthur Smith, the Steelers' offensive coordinator, has coached Jonnu before in both Tennessee and Atlanta. In fact, it was Arthur who facilitated the last trade for Smith, when the Falcons sent a 7th-round pick to the Patriots. That move came after a disappointing stint in New England. But Miami would obviously be seeking more this time around. After all, Smith just had a career year. He's not a cast-off anymore, he's an asset. Still, tight ends rarely command major draft capital, and unless Pittsburgh is desperate, they probably aren't coughing up anything more than a mid-round pick. What's tricky is that Smith isn't your prototypical every-down tight end. He's not going to block like George Kittle or rack up 10 targets a game like Travis Kelce. But what he is when used correctly is a matchup nightmare. Miami found ways to maximize his athleticism and put him in space, often using him as an H-back, slot weapon, or even on sweeps. That creativity unlocked Smith's best football. And it's not guaranteed he'd have the same role elsewhere. That's important because teams know that when evaluating a trade. They'll ask themselves, can we replicate what Miami did? If the answer is no, then his trade value takes a hit. That's the gamble Smith takes by pushing for more money. And that's the dilemma Miami faces in holding the line if this drags out much longer. The risk isn't just missing camp, it's damaging the relationship. Smith didn't attend mandatory minicamp, which speaks volumes. It wasn't a holdout, technically. But it was a clear message. He wants movement, and if he doesn't feel like the Dolphins are serious about investing in him, that positivity he's maintained about staying could start to wane. That's the last thing Miami needs. They've had enough drama in recent years. Keeping the locker room tight and focused has been a McDaniel priority. And allowing a situation like this to fester could crack that chemistry. It's why Rosenhaus optimism is more than PR. It might actually be a nudge to the front office. Get this done. Ultimately, the best outcome for both sides is probably a one-year raise with incentives, giving Smith a fair bump for 2025 and the chance to hit free agency again if things don't work out. That would reward him for his incredible 2024 season, keep the Dolphins' core intact, and buy time to reassess next offseason. Miami can structure the deal with limited guarantees. And Smith gets the respect he's earned, of course. That kind of bridge deal requires compromise. Smith has to trust that the team won't forget about him next year. And Miami has to be willing to show some good faith now. It's not easy, but it's doable. And if both sides are as committed as they say, it should happen before helmets go on. So now we wait. Training camp looms. Every day that passes adds a little more urgency to the situation. Jonnu Smith has earned his moment, and Miami has the chance to show it values not just production, but loyalty and growth. If this ends in a trade, it'll feel like a missed opportunity for Smith, for the team, and for fans who watched him blossom into a star. But if cooler heads prevail, and a fair deal is struck, it could be the start of something even bigger. Smith helped redefine the tight end position in Miami last year. Let's see if they let him do it again in 2025. Still with us? Then show some love, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments, what's your take on the Fins this week? There's a spicy rumor making waves in the NFL world right now that could shake up the defensive landscape for the Miami Dolphins in a big way. Word on the street is that the Dolphins might be closing a deal to send tight end Jonnu Smith along with some draft picks over to the Kansas City Chiefs. In return, Miami could be landing none other than defensive tackle Chris Jones. If this trade actually goes down, it's not just a simple swap, it's a strategic power move that could redefine how Miami's defense operates next season. Picture this, the Dolphins beefing up the middle of their defensive line with a true powerhouse, potentially giving them a serious edge against some of the league's most potent offenses. Now, before we dive deeper, let's talk about Jonnu Smith. He's been a solid piece for Miami's offense, offering versatility as both a blocker and a receiving threat. But this rumored trade suggests the Dolphins might be willing to part ways with that offensive flexibility in exchange for a game-changing defensive presence. Jonnu's skill set has been valuable, but Miami's front office appears laser-focused on fortifying their defense, particularly the trenches where games can be won or lost. The fact that they're also willing to part with draft capital shows how serious they are about acquiring someone like Chris Jones, an elite defensive tackle known for his disruption and ability to command double teams. Chris Jones, on the other hand, is a name that strikes fear in the hearts of opposing quarterbacks. His ability to collapse pockets and force mistakes has made him one of the most feared interior linemen in the league. If Miami successfully secures Jones, it could instantly elevate their defensive identity, providing more pressure up the middle and creating opportunities for their linebackers and secondary to capitalize. It's no secret that the Dolphins have been searching for ways to take their defense to the next level, and adding a player of Jones's caliber might be just the spark they need. However, rumors like this always come with a lot of ifs and buts, and the Chiefs won't let a player like Jones go without a serious price. The draft picks involved in this deal add another layer of intrigue. Miami would likely have to give up multiple picks, potentially a first-rounder or two, to make this trade appealing to Kansas City. That's a hefty price in terms of future assets, but it could pay off if Jones turns out to be the defensive anchor the Dolphins crave. Meanwhile, the Chiefs, by acquiring Jonnu Smith and those picks, might be positioning themselves for a more balanced roster with added offensive weapons and future draft capital. This trade could signal a philosophical shift for Kansas City as they look to retool their offense around Patrick Mahomes while preparing for the future draft classes. This potential trade also sparks questions about Miami's defensive scheme and how Jones would fit into their plans. With a player of his skill set, the Dolphins could deploy more aggressive blitz packages and run stifling gap control. Chris Jones' ability to draw double teams would free up other defenders to make plays, which could transform Miami's defensive efficiency for Dolphins fans. This is the kind of move that could finally close the gap between them and the league's elite defenses. Of course, chemistry and injury history always factor into the equation, so there's no guarantee it's a slam dunk. But the buzz around this possibility is definitely heating up. On the flip side, Kansas City's acquisition of Jonnu Smith could be a strategic boost for their offensive playbook. Smith's ability to stretch the field and create mismatches in the passing game might give Patrick Mahomes some fresh targets, especially if they're looking to diversify their attack. Plus, the added draft picks give the Chiefs flexibility to build around their core or address other roster needs. If the Chiefs pull the trigger on this trade, it could be a sign that they're thinking long-term, balancing immediate production with sustainable roster development. Of course, this comes with risks as well. Losing a dominant defensive player like Jones isn't something that happens lightly. Rumors like these often generate a lot of debate among fans and analysts alike. Some argue that Miami should keep Jonnu Smith and build around their existing offensive strengths, while others believe bolstering the defense with a player like Jones is the smarter play. Meanwhile, Chiefs fans might be split on giving up a defensive juggernaut in exchange for offensive depth and future picks. The NFL is a league of calculated risks, and trades like this highlight just how complex those decisions can be behind the scenes. If this deal actually happens, it could become one of the most talked about moves of the offseason. As with any big rumor, the timing and logistics will play a huge role in whether this trade comes to fruition. Both teams will have to weigh immediate needs against long-term goals, and the salary cap implications could be a sticking point. Miami's front office has been aggressive lately, and acquiring Chris Jones would certainly fit that narrative. But Chiefs general manager Brett Veach is no stranger to tough negotiations. Watching how this unfolds will be fascinating, especially as draft season approaches and teams position themselves for the future. It's a high-stakes game of chess, and every move counts. So, what should Dolphins fans expect if this trade becomes reality? A major shakeup in the defensive line that could elevate the team's competitiveness in the AFC East and beyond. Chris Jones isn't just any player. He's a disruptive force that can change the momentum of games single-handedly. Miami's defense could see a new identity emerge, one that's built around toughness and relentless pressure. Of course, the transition won't be seamless, and chemistry on the field takes time. But the potential rewards, absolutely massive. For the Chiefs, it's about recalibrating their roster and preparing for what's next, which could mean a different kind of dominance moving forward. In the end, this rumored blockbuster trade between the Dolphins and Chiefs is exactly the kind of off-season drama NFL fans crave. It's got everything: star players, draft picks, strategic gambles, and the tantalizing possibility of a reshaped league landscape. Whether it happens or not, it's a story that keeps us talking, debating, and dreaming about what the future holds. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears open, because this one might just go down as one of the biggest moves of the year. And as always, I'll be here breaking it down for you every step of the way. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up!